Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. You are joined by your two usual hosts, Tom Mannering and Josh Hartley. Myself being Josh Hartley, my co-host being Tom Mannering. How are you doing, Tom?
Good clarification for first-time listeners.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. This could be someone's first episode.
It's a really unfortunate choice for a first episode. I can tell you now before we record it.
We have not finished this, sir. In fact, we've barely begun. I need you to change your change your headspace, get a bit of a more positive mental attitude on the go here.
Flip the script, you know.
Before we
come at this from a different angle.
Before we hit record, Tom has just been relaying the woes of his working day, which we're not going to do on the recording because, we're not going to do that. It'll be unprofessional. And yes. I've heard it already, so
exactly. It's not fun for Josh.
But Tom's had a testing day.
Tom has had a testing day, and he's gonna really funnel that into the episode in one way or another, whether Josh likes it or not.
How have things been otherwise? It's actually not been. So for the listeners, this is going to be a week apart. But for us, due to personal scheduling issues, i.e. Tom's mum's visiting him this week.
Cheers, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. So we're actually recording this super early in the week. This is Monday the 12th of July. So like we've recorded last 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
We recorded on I think Thursday of last week. So yeah, we've literally had only a handful of days.
That being said, how have you been over the last 5 days?
I've been pretty good, mate. I'm very excited about my mum coming to visit because I haven't seen her since the before times.
Wow.
So that's going to be really nice to see her. I had a fairly productive weekend, which is a rarity for me in and of itself. I went to the cinema, which was very strange.
Wow.
I went to see Black Widow, which is a decent film.
Okay. Marvel film, right?
Yes.
I don't follow stuff.
I know you don't. I know. See, I went to see Black Widow at the new cinema in Glasgow, which is a View.
Oh, is this the one in St Enoch?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll break it up into two then. First of all, how was being back in a cinema?
It was very weird. It was good. It was nice to be out and doing something, but you have to sit in the film in your mask, which I'm fine with from a safety point of view, and there's a lot of people in an enclosed space, so I think it's a good idea. But it's a very strange sensation to kind of be sitting in a mask watching a film. So that was a bit strange. The one thing that did annoy me a little bit is I noticed when the house lights came up, a lot of people just weren't wearing their masks.
Oh,
and I was like, come on. We're past this point now. The thing is, it does say you can take your mask off if you're eating or drinking.
Which is fair enough. Yeah.
Which, obviously you're not going to shove popcorn through fabric. That's physically impossible, or at least very, very...
Harry Houdini could do it.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I noticed that there were a lot of people who just kind of abandoned them. And I was like, oh, come on. So yeah, it was fine. But the majority of people were good, with socially distancing. The cinema was very responsible in that regard. So all positives on that side of things. To be honest, I wouldn't have gone to the cinema yet, but it was a Marvel film, and I've seen every Marvel film at the cinema. So I was like, I could order it on Disney Plus at home, but I would have to pay double what I would pay to go and see it at the cinema.
Oh, whoa, really?
Daft. Yeah, so to order Black Widow on Disney Plus is about 20 quid.
That's insane.
No matter how many people you're ordering it for, so if it's just you in your house on your own, 20 quid. The cinema that I went to, I bought tickets for myself and the person I went with. It was £15 for the two of us.
Nuts. Okay, yeah.
So it was just it was given financially, but it was also I wanted to see it on the big screen. So yeah, it was good. What's the second part of the question?
How was the film?
the film was really good. Yeah, it's difficult to kind of say much without giving anything away.
Right.
But it's a good Marvel film. It's not a great Marvel film.
Okay.
So I sort of consider a good Marvel film on par with like a very good normal film, in
Sure.
my personal sort of feeling. So it kind of sits there. I had issues with it, but not to the extent that I didn't enjoy it.
Okay. No, fair enough.
And
Good,
that's mainly me being a nerd, to be honest. To be like, actually, that's not the way that.
Actually, and push the glasses up your nose.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, nice. Well, I am just back in Glasgow from visiting my family for watching the football last night, which obviously did not go England's way, as is always the case. But we were in a final, and that's something. That hasn't happened for 55 years. So, and in fairness, the weekend itself was great. It was lovely. I got to see my sister and her family in their new house that they're
Nice.
currently settling into. My nephew Gabe is great. He was singing Three Lions with us, which is nice. Although I'll have some people suggesting that might be child cruelty, no doubt, in the comments. But you can have your opinions.
I would argue that raising a child to support England is in many ways child cruelty.
Yeah, you can take that elsewhere. Those thoughts, Tom. So yeah, it was a great weekend, and it was a thrill just watching England in a final, even though the result didn't go the way we wanted it to. And kudos to Italy, because they've been playing fantastic throughout the entire tournament and continued to do so last night. They were definitely the better team on the night. So
I don't have much in the way of opinions on foot of the ball, but I sort of followed the game loosely. I kind of had it on my phone. Like, I wasn't watching it, but I had the score. And the second I saw it went to penalties, I just went, well, that's that. That's done. That was a good effort, you know.
Oh, it was so close. So close. But there's always next time. There's always next year, in fact. We've got a World Cup next year, so... so sorry, people who don't like football, but there's always football on. But, yeah. Anyway, we will move away from that, and we shall move on to some announcements from over the weekend, particularly from Games Workshop. So... Tom, what have we got? What have we got?
So, do we start with the big one, or do we save that till last?
Depends on... So, like, I'm assuming you mean Kill Team.
Yeah.
So we may as well start with that. I actually think the thing that I think looks cooler is just the new Orks, personally. Mm-hmm. But we'll talk Kill Team.
Okay, let's talk Kill Team. So, we obviously had the announcement on Saturday properly. That we're getting a new edition of Kill Team, which is interesting. Kill Team Octarius, I think that's how you pronounce it. So this is an entirely new edition of Kill Team with revised rules from the ground up, is the terminology I think they used, which I hate as a terminology, but that's fine.
Why?
Because they haven't, right? They have no... From the ground up means we took everything off. Okay. Everything was gone.
Right. Sorry, I thought you had a problem with the saying itself rather than it being used in this context.
I have an issue with it because people always use it in the context of things that have not been completely revised.
Okay.
It's always like, we built this from... No, you haven't. No, you're using a framework that was very much in place. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're revising Kill Team. Now, I have very mixed feelings on this.
Okay.
On the one hand, it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
The models, which we'll discuss a bit further, are great. The presentation, fantastic. Mm-hmm. The terrain, amazing as always. Bit niche, but amazing.
I mean, so was all the Necron stuff from the last box, right?
Sure, right. And that, funnily enough, segues me to my issue, right? So my issue with this is, the last box came out, 6 months ago?
Not even that, right? It was like March.
And fair enough, it used the original edition, but you have got people to go out and buy a box supplement that was £100 plus, that has core rules in it, and you've presented it as like, look at this exciting new Kill Team box, wiped off the table 6 months later. No, you don't do that. That is the epitome of a dick move, and that's really soured my opinion of this.
Okay, fair. I mean, I don't know, that just sounds like Games Workshop doing Games Workshop things, but hey ho.
Like, I can forgive stuff like at the tail end of an edition, where they release like a weird like splat book, like I think like years ago, I could be wrong on this, but I seem to remember like they released like the Stronghold book at the very tail end of like an edition of 40k.
Sure,
and that's fair enough.
Just a new thing to do, and then tide everyone over until the new edition comes out.
And you can argue, well, that box is still going to be valid. You can still use the minis, the maps, the terrain. Fair enough, but like a good chunk of that box is going to be invalidated. The book will be largely invalidated, I would imagine, if these rules have been redesigned from the ground up. And
for the record, I just want to let our listeners know that on webcam, Tom did finger quotes there, and just so you know.
Thank you. And you're just invalidating a product in at least partially, and it eased me off so much, because I love Kill Team. Like, I do love it. I have bought almost everything for it.
I would say you are more into Kill Team than just regular 40k.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I think it's a great system. I love that they're supporting it. I love that, they're still bringing out stuff for it. This would have been great as like a refresher. They could have even made some amendments to it. But to be like, see everything we've done before? That's gone. That's done. Especially that set we just did 6 months ago. It just really gets my back up.
Yeah, I even said at the time, like when that new set was coming out, I'm kind of surprised they haven't just done a new edition of Kill Team to bring it more in line with 9th edition. Particularly now that like a load of the basic troops are getting pretty big stat changes. So the 2 squads in this kit are Orks. You get a bunch of Ork commandos. They look amazing, by the way. I love... there's one who's wearing like the classic sort of SAS like woolly hat in there as well, which I think is a really nice touch. And they are facing off against Imperial Guard, in particular Death Corps of Krieg. So we're actually getting plastic Death Corps of Krieg models, which also look great. And although they've received a bit of criticism online, that is because they are using conventional melee weapons rather than power shovels, which is the whole meme around Death Corps of Krieg. But the Orks are now getting a big stat change. They're going up to toughness 5. Obviously, all the Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines have got 2 wounds now. There's been other stat changes for some of the other factions, so it does make sense that they're doing a new edition of it to bring everything more in line with 40k. Because I think that should be the case where, like, at least the core stats of each model should line up with how it plays in 40k to some degree. But yeah, I get it. It's annoying, particularly for people like yourselves who went out and bought the new box like a few months back, and now you're being told, well, sucks to be you. So
yeah, I think like the other thing that bugs me a little bit, and maybe this isn't necessarily Games Workshop's fault, but so Kill Team dropped about 3 years ago, I would say. Probably just less than, in that ballpark.
Sure.
So of that 3 years, we've had realistically 18 months to play it.
Yeah.
Because unless you live with someone or are bubbled with someone who can play Kill Team, you can't really play Kill Team. So I actually had a memory pop up on Facebook for 2 years ago when I started our Kill Team campaign today.
Yay.
Right, so 2 years ago. Yay! So if you think we started that 2 years ago, and we actually started that not that long after Kill Team's release, it was about, I think, about
a
8
year,
months.
right?
Yeah, 8-9 months. So yeah, we've had about 3 years, but we've only really had, as I say, about 18 months. So you're not really getting your money's worth. And like for a lot of the stuff that released for Kill Team, it released in that window. You know, like the Necron set and some of the other bits and pieces as well. So it just seems a bit crappy to me.
Right.
That being said, it's a very nice looking box. The models are very nice. You know, I love what they've done with the Death Corps. The Death Corps? Is that the right way to say?
Death Corps of Krieg.
Cool, thank you. Death Corps of Krieg. Love what they're doing with the Orks. I love the Ork themed terrain. Which reminds me, it's very reminiscent of Gorkamoka's card fort that you got back in the day. I really wish I still had that card fort. It was amazing. It had a door
gate, you could
that worked.
pull the gate up. Yes.
And it had the watchtower that never stood up properly as well.
Yes, I remember that as well.
Yeah. Did you play back in Gorkamoka?
Yes, Gorkamoka is possibly my favourite Games Workshop game they've ever put out. I love it. I would, if I could muster enough people who would be up for it, I would love to run a Gorkamoka campaign again. It's a pretty big ask because you end up spending a lot of money on and it would look amazing nowadays because of how good the current Ork vehicles are, let alone some of the new stuff that's coming out.
Yeah.
More on that in a second. But I would love to run that and have a little narrative campaign of Gorkamorka, but
no, I think that's fair. It's a cracking set. I really enjoyed it. I think when I was a teenager, very mid-teens, we played that game to death.
Yes.
We played it so much, and I think one of the great things about it was there was a lot of incentive to convert in it. Because you had so much kind of, your guys could get upgrades and modifications, and they actually released sprues of stuff to upgrade your Orks with, mechanical arms and things.
Yeah, really cool. It was awesome.
And vehicles were such a cool part of it. It's one of the few times that Games Workshop have integrated vehicles in a really interesting way. Because you had all the tables you rolled on if you wanted to turn your vehicle and stuff.
Oh my god!
Which was just craziness, but it was a fun game.
My favourite scenario in it is a scenario where you're doing it's a car chase effectively.
Is it the conveyor belt?
Yes. Yeah. This is exactly how they represent that. Is you have to move the terrain so that and everyone's just trying to keep pace with each other, and if one of your guys falls off, that's it, they're out. So
yeah, I loved that one. I think there was one that I really liked. So we played. There were a group of 4 of us that played it a lot, and it would mean that quite often, you'd have one person play another, and then one person play another, and so on and so forth. But they released a scenario, and I can't remember if it's on White Dwarf or something like that, but it was there was an Ork dreadnought in the middle, and it was supposed to be in one of the Ork cities, and the dreadnought had gone ballistic, basically.
Oh my god, yes.
Gone mental, and it was one of the only 4-player missions that you could do, and basically it was all about you got points and scrap for destroying the dreadnought first, and what you did to it, and it was just carnage. You get all these buggies and things speeding into the middle. They'd all start spinning out, slamming into each other. The dreadnoughts tearing in some so many fun games of that. We basically, our campaign was just a bunch of dreadnoughts going mental, one after another at one point, because we just kept replaying that mission because it was so much fun. Yeah, I would love to see Gorkamoka make a comeback. I don't know if it will. I'm not sure it'd get the traction now.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to do it, now's the time, because coming up for pre-order this weekend is all of the new Orcs, or bunch of the new Orcs stuff. This is a lot of the Beast Snagger stuff that we've seen previously, but in this recent reveal, they showed off a lot of new stuff. What do you think of it, Tom?
I think it looks really, really good. I don't have a whole lot to say beyond that because I'm not a big Orc guy. Like, I think Orcs have always been such an interesting faction in 40k. They're very characterful, especially the newer ones. You know, they're a fun mix of kind of terrifying and comical.
Yes.
And these models do a very, very good job of sort of balancing those two things in fairly equal measure, which I think is really good. But no, I think we're seeing some really, really nice Orc minis coming out of this. I particularly like the and I know they are part of Kill Team, so you'll excuse me for referencing back to it. But I really do like the design of the commandos. I really like the new vehicles that are kind of framed around sort of squigs and things.
Yeah.
I think it's a great looking set. The only one I'm a bit on the fence about is, and I'm not even sure what it is because I've only seen the pictures of it, but it's like a tower sort of orc face mech thing.
This is their sort of trend of having a scenery piece for each army.
I'm not in love with that. It's just got a little bit too much. You know how we've said before, some models are a bit too busy. That one sort of falls into, because I always imagine Orc stuff being very simplistic.
Yes.
You know, that's kind of part of their shtick. So I get what they're going for with it, but it just looks a bit too busy for me. I really like the Great White Squig.
It looks awesome. It looks so awesome.
Cool. The only one that I was a bit underwhelmed of their actual miniatures is the Death Copters. They look very similar to the old ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they look alright. They do the job. I'm just glad that they're doing them now properly, so that you can actually buy them. So
yeah, that's fair.
The thing that I am happiest about in this release, frankly, is we're getting new boys, new regular Orc boys, because my lord, did that kit need an upgrade. And they look fantastic. They look as mean and as threatening as Orcs in space should. So
I was looking at the Warhammer community page just before we recorded this episode, and I really like when they do the dioramas, you know, with new stuff and even with older stuff as well.
Yeah.
And there's a diorama on there, and I think this is in reference to the new Warzone book that's coming out. But it's a picture, and you can see this for yourself if you go on Warhammer Community, and it's got like an Imperial bunker, and it's got some Imperial Guard or Adaptus, whatever they're called.
I think they're back to calling them Imperial Guard.
Okay.
To be fair,
he's got some Imperial Guard on there with what looks like some sort of Inquisitor, and then on one side you've got this Tyrannid horde coming into it. And then literally on the other side, sort of almost meeting alongside the Tyrannid horde, there's an Orc horde, and I'm like, that is a bad day. Like that's a real bad day in the Imperial Guard when you've got Tyrannids and Orcs rushing you at the same time. Yeah. And also, what are the chances of that happening? But still, like that is a bad day. But that gave me a chuckle.
I think wherever there's a war going on in the 41st millennium, there's a fair chance of Orcs just showing up because it's a fight. So,
yeah, that's fair. You don't need a whole lot of rationale.
Yeah, exactly. I love these new models. If it wasn't for the fact that I am working through painting up a Necron army, I would have probably thrown myself face first into this. What I might actually end up doing, though, is at some point down the line trying to set, like as we were talking about there, trying to recruit a number of people to do like some Gorka Morka, and then maybe I'll get like the new boys kit and a couple of vehicles for that. and that would be fun, you know, just to use that. Otherwise, yeah. What else is there to say? They look amazing, and you'll be able to pre-order them very soon. It would be remiss of me if I didn't mention. I love the fact that they're making squigs more of a thing in the space with the Space Orks, and in particular, it is the Beast Snagger war boss on foot, and he has a targeting squig on his shoulder, which has its eyes, its pupil is actually a crosshair, and that is just perfect.
Yeah, I saw that. I think I could be wrong about this, but I think you're gonna see some of these models in competitions, for painting competitions and conversions. As well.
For sure.
There's a lot you could do with them. I mean, like, even the ones that they previewed on the Warhammer community group, like some of the tattoo work on one of them is really nice, really intricate as well. He's got like a proper like sort of tribal thing across his shoulder, and I was like, yeah, sack painting that. It's like my nightmare. But yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah, awesome. Right. Anyway, moving on. I think the only other thing to talk about is, of course, so the new set for Magic the Gathering, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, doesn't come out in paper for a couple of weeks. However, it is now out on Magic the Gathering Arena, on mobile and on PC and Mac. I have it. I haven't had a chance to play it because, as mentioned earlier in the episode, I was away seeing my family. But Tom has. Tom, have you been having fun? Have you been enjoying it?
Yes and no. So I've messaged, just to give a bit of disclosure here, I've messaged Josh basically some abuse for something that is not at all his fault, just for how annoyed I've been getting at Magic Arena. So I was sitting down on Saturday morning, and I'd kind of done everything I needed to do urgently, and I was like, I fancy playing a computer game, and I saw I had Magic Arena installed, and I was like, oh, I might go and try and get. I didn't even know the Forgotten Realms had come out on there. I thought I might try and just go and get a few more packs unlocked and just kind of have a play on that. And I go on, and lo and behold, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms out, and I'm like, well, that's my weekend. So I started playing, and I have had some very unpleasant experiences in just a couple of days of playing. Now, I will preface this with saying I've had some very good experiences.
Cool.
Well.
Okay. Do you care to talk more about them?
It's not really. They're less funny. It's not all bad. But I'm gonna just pull up the messages I sent to Josh, because
yes.
I think this is a fair description. So this was on Saturday afternoon, early afternoon. I said, this is me to Josh. Magic Arena is inducing the same rage in me that its real life counterpart does. Next message. I get mana screwed. My opponent top decks the exact counter that they need. About 30 minutes later, how ridiculous is this? I had the guy dead to rights. I have a full board. He's got barely nothing. I have 73 health to his 12. He top decks a board wipe and proceeds to shove my head up my ass. I've played this guy twice. So today, that was Saturday. Hold
on. That's not quite the full picture, because bear in mind, flash over to what Josh is doing, and I'm seeing like my mum and my sister and my nephew, right, and spending time with them, and Tom is sending me like bad beat stories. So I just responded with all the sympathy in the world. You should just get good.
Yep. Yes, you did.
Yep.
You should get good. Thanks, Josh. It did make me realise how much I want a Serac though in my real black deck, because he is awesome. But I'm going to talk about none of those. I'm going to talk about a game I had today at lunchtime. Okay. So I'm on my lunch. I'm taking a wee reprieve from work. I've got myself a ham sandwich in front of me. I just want to paint a bit of a picture here.
Yeah.
And I've got my phone in front of me.
I want to hear more about that ham sandwich.
It was delicious.
Cool.
Had some tomatoes in it, a little garnish of mayonnaise on the top.
Okay, yeah.
A whole meal roll because I'm trying to be a bit healthy. It was beautiful. You should try it. So I'm sitting down, right, and I thought I'll play a quick game of arenas, just see how I do. So I go on, and I'm running a blue-black deck. Now, I hate playing blue, and I'll come back to why in a minute.
Right.
But one of the quests for today is that I've got to play blue and black cards. So
Sure.
Blue and black deck makes sense. So I run this blue-black deck, and my deck is largely about me drawing cards from what I can see here, which is how you should play blue. My opponent's deck is not. It is a blue deck that is about counterspelling everything I do and milling my entire deck. Now, if you don't know what milling is, it's basically you put your opponent's cards from his deck into his discard pile. So he never gets them. He never gets to play with those cards. He never gets to use those cards. He doesn't get to have fun. That's not why he's come to this game. So I'm trying to have like a break from what is a fairly stressful work day with just this absolute bell end just milling my entire deck. Just like everything he does mills cards. He draws a card, I discard a card. He plays a card, I discard a card. He does this, I discard a card. It's a Tuesday, Tom discards a card.
Monday.
It's
a Monday.
All right. And I'm just milling my entire deck, and I'm like, okay, he's giving me a beating, but I've got to play here, right? He's got a really big monster on the field that I've been barely managing to stop kill me. And I'm like, that's really he's got all his eggs in that basket. If I can just get that off him, or get it off the board, I can at least do something. So I'm like, okay, I'll wait. And he's like used most of his mana. I'm like, right, he's used a lot of his mana here. He's not got a lot to counter me. I'm good to go. And I drop a Mind Flayer out on the table that gives me control of one of his monsters, and I'm like,
nice.
Drop
also,
it on
super
the table.
flavorful. I like that. It does that.
It's a very good card.
Yeah.
Drop it out, and boom, he counters it with a really low counter. I can't remember the name of it, right? But just boom, that's gone. No fun for you. And I was like, boom, concede. I'm done with this. I am done with this. Like I had to mentally and physically restrain myself from throwing my phone across the room. And I'm not one for getting that angry at computer games. But I was like, could you not let me have that? You have literally spent this entire game stopping me doing anything and milling my deck down. Now this brings me on to my point. I hate blue. I hate it.
We have talked about this on a previous episode.
Well, we're going to talk about it again.
Okay, right, cool.
We're going to have a refresher for anyone that didn't.
Thought I might have been able to steer you away from that, but sure, you go for it, Tom.
It is just the worst colour and encourages the worst type of players, right? You can do some fun stuff with blue. Illusion cards, they're fun. Card draw, that's fine. Josh loves a bit of card draw. All these kinds of things, they're fine. But see when you are stopping the other player playing the game, that's not fun. That should not be part of the game. I don't blame you, although not you specifically, Josh. I don't blame you, the blue player, although I do blame you as well, Josh. I blame Wizards of the Coast and whoever built Magic for thinking that this was a mechanism that a game needed to have in it. Because the only way to deal with that kind of player is to be that kind of player.
It's interesting. You've actually touched on a few comments that I was going to bring up. So first of all, just for context, more for my sake actually, what format were you playing? Standard. Oh, Tom, he wasn't even playing a good deck. Yeah, it's not one of the competitive decks anyway at the moment. Standard's a tough one, right? The constructed formats are very difficult to come up with a deck that's gonna function against the really tuned competitive decks. So that's the caveat. I don't know what your deck list is. I don't know how much whether you looked it up online or if you brewed this yourself or what have you, but That's just any of the sort of competitive constructed formats. That's going to be a thing. What do I do when I come up against decks that I don't enjoy playing against? Is one of two things, actually. One, you're not obligated to play the game out, and as you already said, you actually conceded. But there's certain decks, if I'm not in the mood for playing against them, and I'm aware that, that's what this opponent has rocked up with, just hit concede. Because life's too short to not be enjoying playing a game. So there's that. But the other thing I have done is, and I think you've categorically ruled this out, I will try playing with that deck and just seeing whether I enjoy playing that and seeing how that goes. The thing about blue being the nope colour, like the colour of you don't get to do the things you do, unfortunately has been a part of the game's design since the very, very, very first cards were printed. Counterspell is in alpha, the very first set of Magic the Gathering. So that is just a part of the identity of blue. They tend to now have counterspells be either conditional, as in, you counter this unless your opponent pays a bit of extra mana or something like that.
Yeah.
Or they're more expensive now than just regular 2-mana counterspell. So they have done things to mitigate that. And to be honest, out of the formats that the ways of playing that I enjoy playing, the constructed format that I play right now the most by far is Commander. And while counterspells do get played in Commander, they are not as efficient as they are in a 1v1. You're basically spending a card to answer something that's going to benefit the rest of your opponents as well. So if I'm running blue in my Commander deck, I will probably have 2 or 3 different cards that will counter target spell, because someone will inevitably try and play a card that is just, may as well just read, I win the game now. So it's good to have something up your sleeve to stop that from happening. But you don't want to fill up an entire 99 in your Commander deck of counter spells, because you just won't get anything done.
Yeah.
So, and you're just doing the whole table a favour rather than just yourself. So it's not that particular type of opponent and play pattern isn't something I actually come up against all that often. And when I do, and I'm getting frustrated, I just click concede, because
I get that, and I think that's a valid point to make. I think it frustrates me so much because I know that blue has always had that, and I'm not arguing that, but I do think it's much more prolific with blue now, and I do think, and this is an assumption on my part, but I do think that people that build those kinds of decks are almost doing it out of badness.
I think I've mentioned it previously, but Wizards of the Coast ran they run lots of surveys actually every year just to get a feel. But one of the results from a survey from the past revealed 2 things. One, that a lot of Magic the Gathering players like to feel smart. And that's one of the reasons why they play. Hence why blue is a very popular colour, because you feel real smart when you counter someone's spell.
Yeah.
And 2, this is the one that amuses me, is that most Magic the Gathering players think they are smarter than the average person. Now, that is impossible. Not every Magic the Gathering player is going to have a higher than average intelligence. You probably most likely average intelligence, if that.
Yeah. It's one of my, and I think I mentioned this historically on episodes as well, it's one of my big bugbears with Magic, and it has become very prevalent in the internet age that we certainly didn't have when I started Magic back in the very, very early sets, because I started back in the 90s. And it's net decks, it's these very prolific decks, very prolific, types of decks that people play that, it's basically just you end up playing mirror matches. It happened to me. I've only ever been to one constructed tournament, and it wasn't with my own deck. I basically wanted to go to this tournament because someone else I knew was going. Can't even remember who now. And I said to Barry, I want to go to this tournament. I don't have a constructed deck. Can you help me build a deck? So Barry helped me put together a deck. I didn't really know anything about the deck beyond what he'd helped me put into it. And I knew like how to play it.
Okay, right.
But I didn't know, the history of this deck, or that it was part of.
And like before you went to this tournament, like how many reps did you get in with that deck? Like how many?
Good few. Can't remember exactly, but a good few. I was confident with the deck. That wasn't an issue. But I got to the tournament, and I think of the, let's say 20, 30 people there, a good third of them had this deck, some variation of this deck. Equally, the rest of them had very similar decks, of a different pattern.
So did Barry just Google when he was helping you build this deck?
He either Googled it or he was aware of it, himself. Sure. Because at that point in time, Barry was very into Magic and he was very aware of the meta and things as well. So we had this situation where I ended up like just playing my own deck multiple times, and like then when I got to play other decks, I'd end up playing like two of the same in that as well. And I was like, this isn't fun. This isn't interesting. I'm not seeing new ideas, innovation, people coming up with, fun. Like, fair enough, they're not thematic. It's competitive. Fine, that's a given. But when you've got a tournament of 30 people and there's maybe 4 or 5 decks there, that's not great.
Yeah, it's nice. It's definitely nicer to have like more diverse formats. So my other suggestion is play limited, because you can't net deck that. It's just down to what you open. So
see, that's a problem as well, because and this is just going to come off as me being a whingy bugger, and I am, but I either have really good but really useless luck, where I'll pull a load of good stuff but it just doesn't have any synergy,
right,
or I pull garbage.
Right.
And I've been to quite a lot of drafts with you and Ewan and Ryan and things, and I've done quite a bit of the drafting format. I quite enjoy drafting. I don't really like building a deck on the fly. Like, my enjoyment of Magic is very similar to my enjoyment of things like D&D and things. I like thematic stuff.
Yeah,
I like, someone has a deck based around a specific race or a specific type of thing, spellcasters and stuff like that. And I like sets that pull on that. So like I have, if I open like my cupboard and pull out my Magic decks, pretty much every deck is built specifically around zombies, humans, elves, and stuff like that. And the cards that are in there tie into that theme. It's not just something for the sake of having something. Like I could, if I particularly wanted to, I could probably tell you the story of my deck from a narrative standpoint.
Cool.
Doesn't really work in limited,
no,
because you get a load of random stuff.
Yeah,
it might be from the same set, but it's still pretty random.
Well, they do normally try and design at least some draft archetypes. So, if I remember, to tie in with what you're talking about, Ixalan from a few years back, that had very tribal themes, like archetypes. So you could draft black-white vampires, blue-green merfolk, and then there were dinosaurs, which are in the Naya colours, which are white, red, and green. And what was the fourth one again? I can't remember. There was pirates. You could have pirates, which were blue, black, and red. Yeah. So they tried, at least, that they do design these sets so that you get funneled. Like there is a theme to them, albeit that's probably one of the more explicit ones that they've done in recent years. Most of the time, it's something like blue-white flyers or like blue-black mill or that sort of stuff. So, they do try and do it in. Or no, they don't try and do it. They do it in limited. It's just it is down to like what you end up opening and what gets passed to you and the like. But I enjoy it for that. I enjoy the little puzzle that you've got to solve on the fly to build some sort of functioning deck. So that's...
I think my issues with Magic largely stem from my own hang-ups. You know, it's I want it to be played in a specific way, and that's not how it's played.
Okay.
At least not by a vast majority of players. You know, who are looking to. It's all about winning. And you know, any kind of narrative or fun be damned. You know, if your opponent doesn't get to do anything, then that's a result on your part. And I think we've discussed this before in relation to like games like 40k and stuff. You know, I don't enjoy absolutely pummeling someone at a game of 40k. That's not fun for me. And vice versa. It's not fun to be on the receiving end of it. I like a game that's got a bit of tension. You know, a bit of back and forth, a bit of challenge to it. And I tend to find with Magic, it goes one way or the other, which is why I get annoyed at mechanics like, you know, land, when you get hosed because you don't draw the right land or enough land, or you get just land, and I'm like, this is not fun. I don't want to poo-poo Magic, because it is a very good game and a very popular game for a reason. My point is, I have to question, is the community the right community for the way I like to play games? Which is a point that I think you have to take into consideration with any game that you play. You know, are you playing it with the same intent as the other people at the table?
The social contract.
Yeah.
Right.
In Arena, the answer is probably
no
no.
one cares. Well, I would
right.
be up for getting some games of Commander in with you, and I will make a point of bringing a deck that is themed. How about that?
I don't know if I have a themed Commander deck. I think I just have one of the default ones. I tried at one point to build a zombie Commander deck, and I got
tons of them.
Part of the way to it. A lot of the good ones, though, that like actually make the deck even remotely playable, are very old and quite rare. You know, in both cost and availability.
No, it doesn't put me off.
I know. I've seen how much you pay and sell Magic cards for, but yeah, it's just not the way I particularly want to approach it. But yeah, anyway, I think that's enough for my whinging about Magic. The new set is very cool.
Yes.
The mechanics are really cool. I actually love how much flavour the cards have them just in how they play. I think if they made every Magic set like this going forward, I'd be much happier.
Yeah.
Because there is so much character in just how the cards work. Like, by way of example, that Mind Flayer card, you know, it perfectly encapsulates the monster it's supposed to represent. And I like the sort of narrative flair cards, you know, like you meet in a tavern and you gather your group and stuff like that. They're really cool. So I actually really, really like the set, and I think if you played it with the right kind of people, whether you want to play it competitively or narratively or somewhere in between, you'd have a really good time with the set. So I will say that for it. So as negative as I've been,
we've got a positive to end on. Hey, praise be.
But if you play blue, you can shove your own head up your ass for all.
And on that note, shall we call it an episode? So, as always, guys, thank you very much for listening. And until next time, take care. Bye.